Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the update for yesterday. I'm a day behind on these now. It is currently the 13th of July, which means this update is for the 12th of July, which I think was a Sunday, if my memory serves me correctly. Alright, so for this day, I was in the accounting office. The lead accountant took, I think, like a 5 or 6 day weekend, and this was the last day of that. At least I hope it is, because actually I am filming this on the morning of Monday the... See how I could only remember that for like 5 seconds? But anyway, for Monday the 13th, and it's currently about 6:30 in the morning, which means that the accounting process has already begun, and hopefully she's back. If she's not back, I'm sure it's going to be a frantic day for me. I start at 7 o'clock this morning, which is when the longhand, this one, reaches the 12, right up there. Now, for an accounting office day, this was a pretty good day. Only a couple of things that were off. One was this new process, this new accounting process that we're doing. We're still kind of learning what things look like, and basically I determined during the shift that I'm talking about today that an error or an issue that I spent like 30 minutes or so the previous day trying to figure out, am I doing something wrong? Are we not understanding this process? Turns out today that the previous day somebody had done some math or counting wrong, and that person was not me. But anyway, and so all that seems like the process is fine. But again, when you have a new procedure, when you're doing like investigative type of stuff, you have to learn what new things look like. You know, like what does it look like when this happens, or what does it look like when that happens? Basically, it turned into one of those type of scenarios. But anyway, so now we know. And so if something like that happens again, we'll figure it out. And the other mix-up today was is a very, very common mix-up that makes big, scary-looking numbers, but they wash out. Basically, when something gets attributed to one register that should have been attributed to another register behind the scenes, and yeah. Anyway, it all washes out, and happens all the time. I've done those type of things too when I've been in the roles that were involved. So anyway, all good. So that was kind of the accounting office day today. And then after that, went to the gym. The other thing about accounting office today is that I worked the 5 to 2. This, and I mentioned this yesterday that after this new system, they altered the 5 a.m. accounting days to being 4 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. days for a little bit. So that you can buy yourself a little bit extra time. And so I started going, anyway, because of that, and of course you're learning this process, and of course because I was making those tutorial booklets and things like that for my colleagues and things of that, that whole thing that I was talking about for several weeks. Anyway, long story short, this was now for me on this new system the first kind of more standard length type of day. And what I mean by that is accounting's basically been like a full day thing, at least my side of it, ever since this new system rolled out. And I want to say that was like on the 16th or 17th of June. So almost a month of spending a lot of time behind the scenes doing this stuff, and not being out on the floor as much. Anyway, today ended up getting done with everything in almost exactly 6 hours. And this was a day where I ended up having to refill lottery tickets, which is a process that sometimes is accounting, sometimes is service desk. Just kind of depends who's there that day. That's literally what determines it. And so this was a day that it ended up being accounting. And so, which adds 30, 40 minutes to the process. Long story short, that means I would have been about 5 hours and change if it had been the service desk does lottery day. And so, for the first time since we did this new accounting system, I was in the ballpark of where I should be time wise. So we're getting there. And I mentioned at the very beginning of this whole thing that, like everything else, we will get there in time. Give it time. Well, we're getting there. Anyway, so with that, got off work, went to the gym, and let's see, pretty decent workout. It was a Sunday afternoon, and for whatever reason, again, I've mentioned this before, gym workouts in the afternoon, on weekend afternoons, people don't seem to be in there. And yet I like working out when I get days off. Again, is the gym on like weekday mornings or weekend mornings like a complete just nightmare? Anyway, let's see. So after that, I mentioned yesterday that, or in the previous update, that I had loaded up one of the vans with basically a bunch of stuff to move to the storage shed, or storage locker that I have. And then at the time that I was actually going to go and do the drop-off, couldn't find my freaking wallet, and that turned into an 80-minute saga. Well, dropped that stuff off, loaded the storage unit, went back down to the garage, basically loaded another load of stuff and unloaded that over at the unit. And we're making really good progress on that. Yeah, there's one of these days I want to do like an entire series of content about stuff that I'm discovering. It's really, I have a feeling there's some really, really neat stuff that I could talk a whole lot about. Not only mementos that are specific to me, but it basically turns out that that my place ended up being where Dad's, like, old family documents and things that Dad had, a lot of them ended up in my possession. And in addition to all sorts of other neat things, Dad liked clipping newspapers, and so did his like mom, and in other words, kind of come from a lineage almost like a pack rats in the fact of like greeting cards and things like that. And anyway, for that reason, and I kind of lost my train of thought there, but oh. Yes, so the storage facility. Making a lot of progress there, and kind of categorizing things, but I would like to talk about some of this neat stuff that I found, although, again, the 10-minute update format, haven't quite had the time to do that yet. Because I'll get to the end, I've tried it a couple of times, and then whatever kind of neat thing I found, I have like a minute and a half to talk about it, and turns out I'm just too long-winded for that, and then start telling the story, realize I have 10 seconds left. Okay, and that's if you've seen some of the content, you've watched my attempts to do that, and you've seen how it turned out, and yeah. So, but still want to try stuff like that, but who knows, maybe someday I'll do a couple of like long-form videos about, some of this just neat stuff. Not that there's, but I keep thinking those videos would be like watching somebody's vacation photos, and, might be more. Who knows? Anyway, and then with that, went home with the intention of, after unloading things into the second locker, the second trip of the day, it was now like 9 something, and went home with, got some Carl's Jr., ate that, and then was getting ready to film this video, and then, well, given that I'd been up since, 3 o'clock in the morning, just all of a sudden, I'm done. And so just too tired. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do a good video tonight. So called it off and went to bed so that I could get up early and get ready to start a 7 a.m. shift, which starts now in about 20 minutes. Thanks for joining me today, everyone, and I'll look forward to talking to you tomorrow. Ciao for now.